In the annals of history, few stories resonate with the sheer audacity and strategic genius of a journey that defied the very laws of nature. It is a tale not just of a great general, but of an army that dared to cross an impassable barrier, a legend etched into the mountains themselves. Imagine a time over 1,000 years ago, a world dominated by the rising power of Rome. From the south, another great power, Carthage, watched with growing concern. A bitter rivalry, a clash of empires, was inevitable. This is the story of Hannibal Barca, a name that would strike fear into the heart of Rome for a generation. It is the story of his vow, made as a boy, to be an eternal enemy of Rome. And it is the story of the extraordinary feat he undertook to fulfill that vow, leading a massive army, complete with war elephants, across the treacherous, snow-capped Alps to bring the war to Rome's doorstep. This wasn't just a military campaign, it was a gamble against the gods, a test of human endurance and will against the raw, unforgiving power of the mountains. Our journey begins not on a battlefield, but in the midst of a colossal mountain range, a natural fortress that had protected Italy for centuries. This is where Hannibal would make his mark, not with bronze and iron alone, but with a vision so bold it bordered on madness. The march began in the late autumn of 218 BC. A force of nearly 50,000 infantry, 9,000 cavalry, and 37 war elephants set out from Hispania. Their numbers were a testament to Hannibal's influence, a coalition of Carthaginians, Libyans, Iberians, and Gallic mercenaries all bound by loyalty to their commander. As they journeyed east, the initial challenges were not the mountains but the rivers and the hostile tribes of Gaul. Crossing the Rhine River was their first major test. The Gauls lined the opposite bank, ready to fight. Hannibal, a master of deception, sent a detachment upstream under the cover of night. Just as the main army began its perilous crossing on rafts and boats, the flanking force attacked the Gauls from the rear, scattering them in panic. The elephants, terrified of the wide, flowing water, were coaxed onto massive rafts camouflaged with earth and foliage. It was a logistical marvel, a sign of the ingenuity that would define the entire campaign. But as the army left the river behind, the ground began to rise. A new, more formidable enemy appeared on the horizon, the Alps. The soldiers, many from the warm climates of Africa and Spain, looked upon the jagged, white-capped peaks with a mixture of awe and dread. Winter was approaching, and the path ahead was unknown and fraught with peril. The true journey was only just beginning. Look at this map. Here, in Hispania, modern-day Spain, is where Hannibal consolidated his power. His march took his army north, along the Mediterranean coast. Avoiding a direct confrontation with the Roman army sent to intercept him, he crossed the Rhine River here, a critical move that surprised his enemies. The Romans expected him to fight in Gaul. Instead, he turned east, toward the Alps. The exact route he took remains one of history's great debates. Did he take a northern pass, or a more southerly one? Most historians believe he marched up the Isar River Valley, confronting the Allobroges tribe before tackling one of the high mountain passes. Each route presented its own set of challenges, narrow gorges perfect for ambushes, steep climbs, and the ever-present threat of rock slides. The geography was his primary adversary. The Alps were not just a physical barrier, they were a psychological one. They stood as a towering wall separating Gaul from Italy, a symbol of Rome's perceived invincibility. By choosing to cross them, Hannibal was making a strategic statement. He was not just attacking Rome, he was bypassing its defenses, striking at its heart from a direction no one thought possible. This move would force the Romans to fight on their own soil, disrupting their plans and shaking their confidence. The map shows a line, but this line represents unimaginable hardship. The ascent into the high Alps was a descent into a frozen hell. The weather, already cold, turned vicious. Snow began to fall, covering the treacherous paths and concealing deadly crevices. The army, unused to such conditions, struggled for footing on the icy slopes. Men and pack animals slipped, plunging thousands of feet into the abysses below. Local mountain tribes, seeing the vulnerable column snaking through the narrow passes, launched relentless guerrilla attacks. They would wait on the cliffs above, rolling down massive boulders that crashed into the marching ranks, causing chaos and sending soldiers and horses to their deaths. Hannibal was constantly in the thick of it, one moment leading a charge to clear an ambush, the next organizing his men to widen a path that had been blocked by a landslide. Food became scarce. The army had to consume its own pack animals to survive. The war elephants, symbols of Carthaginian power, suffered terribly. The cold, the lack of fodder, and the slippery terrain took a heavy toll. Many succumbed to exhaustion or fell from the cliffs. The morale of the troops plummeted. These were soldiers, not mountaineers. The endless white landscape, the biting wind, and the constant death were a greater trial than any battle they had ever fought. It was here, in the freezing silence of the peaks, that Hannibal's leadership was tested to its absolute limit. After 15 days of unimaginable struggle in the mountains, the survivors emerged onto the Italian side. The army was a shadow of its former self. Tens of thousands of men, thousands of horses, and most of the elephants had been lost to the cold, starvation, and enemy attacks. But they had done it. They had crossed the Alps. For the weary soldiers, the sight of the green plains of Italy below was like a vision of paradise. Hannibal had achieved the impossible. But this was not the end, it was the beginning. Though his army was battered and depleted, his strategic goal was accomplished. He was in Italy, and the Roman war machine was caught completely off guard. The legend of Hannibal was born in those mountains. The crossing of the Alps became a testament to his unbreakable will and his ability to inspire men to follow him through hell itself. Though Carthage would ultimately lose the war, Hannibal's incredible journey remains one of the most audacious military maneuvers in all of history. It is a timeless story of human ambition, of the defiance of limits, and of a general who was willing to risk everything and march through a frozen wasteland to keep a promise made as a boy. The ghost of his army and the shadows of his great elephants still haunt the high passes of the Alps. Thank you for watching. If you found this journey through history compelling, please consider subscribing for more stories like this.